Welcome one and all to the 7th Annual WordCamp Europe. This is track 2. My name is Johan Olsen. I'm a happiness engineer with Automatic, and it's my absolute pleasure to be your MC today. We have 3 great speakers lined up, and the first of our speakers is coming today all the way from Jacksonville, Florida. Charles Johnston is a designer in this company, HeartWired Digital Solutions. He originally started blogging in WordPress, like many of us, then started dabbling a little bit more with WordPress, understanding how the innards work, and then lo and behold, he made it into his business. But it was on a missionary trip to Haiti that he really saw how he could use his technology for good. And so he's here today to tell us about WordPress specifically for nonprofits. The title of his speech is WordPress for Nonprofits, Website Best Practices, Collecting Donations, Increasing Exposure Online. Please welcome Charles Johnston.
Good morning. I'm looking for my slides. We're not going to display this? Okay, just making sure. If you are not here for WordPress for Nonprofits, website best practices, collecting donations, and increasing exposure online, you're welcome to leave, but I suggest that you don't. Again, my name is Charles, and I am from the United States. This is my first WordCamp Europe. I've done some local WordCamps back in the States. Let me go through a little bit about me, real quick. I've been in the IT field for almost 30 years. Like I said, I started WordPress in 2007 as a blogger. When I started, I didn't actually publish my first post until 2008 because I was terrified of actually allowing the internet to see what I was writing about. When I started as a blogger, I started as a faith-based blog for men, and then I found out that most of my readers were women. And so I had to kind of modify the way that I did things. And as he had said, I went on my first mission trip in 2015, and that's when I decided that I needed to start using my gifts and talents a little bit more for the good of the community, both locally and globally, and I started an actual design agency in 2016 that focused primarily on nonprofits, small to medium-sized businesses that give back to their community. That is the company name is HeartWired Digital Solutions. We just went through a rebrand, which is kind of an interesting thing to go through. When we did that, I figured out a lot more about design from my own aspect because I thought I knew my brand until I let somebody else work my brand. And what we're going to discuss today is how to actually go through that for a nonprofit. While they serve the common good, they need to also be treated just like a business when it comes to design, and that and obviously the best nonprofit to support nonprofits would be a nonprofit such as WordPress, which obviously everybody should have a CMS, and WordPress is the best CMS in my humble opinion to actually operate and get the information for the nonprofit organizations to collect data as well as be able to share the data. And WordPress was founded as a nonprofit and currently still is run as such. And currently 42% of all nonprofit websites are on WordPress, and that obviously is continuing to grow, at least is if I have anything to say about it, because I believe that WordPress is actually built for one of the best donation platforms that's out there. So why WordPress? First of all, it's free for the most part. Obviously, you have WordPress.com and you have WordPress.org, but you can get started for free minus a domain and some hosting. It's relatively easy to learn. If you can't figure it out just by going to WordPress.org itself, you obviously have Google, YouTube, everything else that's out there. It's open source, which obviously that's why we have a community like this, because everybody shares everything that they do and make it where everybody else has access to it. It's customizable, and that's really geared towards whether it's a nonprofit or a business where you can modify it to your own aspects. There's a community, such as the ones represented here in Berlin. That community is where designers like me, when we get stuck, that's where we go for help first, is to the community. And that's where, that is a strong community where they not only help as far as design and development, but they also help as far as ideas, concepts that you may not have thought of on your own. It's built to be social, which has nonprofits that part of their medium to actually get donations is through social media, and WordPress is actually built specifically for shareability. And of course, you also have plugins for about everything, whether it's donation gathering, email marketing, things of that nature. There's a plugin out there of some sort that will actually be able to provide everything that you need. I have some recommended plugins for people that are starting out. Obviously, you want to make sure that if you are collecting donations, that they are secure. And there are some security ones such as Jetpack, AskMe, SSL, WordFence. Obviously, there's many others that are out there, but those are just your basic ones that you want to make sure that you incorporate whenever you are building a website, because you want to make sure that the nonprofit's information that you're collecting, as well as the ones that they're sharing, is protected from hackers and things of that nature. And then there's the way of actually receiving those donations, because you want to have it where it's an application that people feel that they can trust. There are certain ones that are out there, such as Give, WooCommerce, which I know is represented here today, Charitable, as well as PayPal, and then there's many others as far as payment organizations that you can utilize to actually collect those donation dollars. And it makes it where it's accessible 24/7 too, versus them actually mailing a check, which is the way it used to be. And then there are opt-ins to actually collect the data from people that are looking at the nonprofit organizations, such as Privy, Opt-in Monster, Bloom, Gravity Forms, and obviously, again, there are many other ones out there because you want to build a list. It's like any other organization, you want to have a way to actually market your nonprofit. Even though it is a nonprofit, you're still out there soliciting for donations. When you're building a nonprofit website, the biggest thing that you need to focus on is to tell their story. And as a designer, it's a little weird because sometimes the nonprofits don't even know what their story is until you actually pick their brain and start talking to them and figure out who their audience truly is. A lot of times that is the history of the organization. How did they get started? Where are they currently, and where are they going? And you want to be able to translate that in a way that the visitors can recognize why they want to actually be a part of that organization, as far as either a donor or volunteer or that kind of thing. And the stories that you're sharing, that's how they differentiate the way that their nonprofit is from another. There's plenty of, for example, animal rescues. There's numerous animal rescues out there globally, but you want to figure out a way to actually differentiate yours from somebody else's. And that's where their personal story, the way that they actually develop the organization and what they're doing currently will differentiate. And generally, when you talk on the heartstrings, that's when you actually get people to open up their wallet. And when you get into emotional connections, that also can increase passionate donations. There's a reason why a lot of nonprofits out there use testimonials, stories of people that they've helped, pictures, things of that nature, because for the visitor, it's a journey for you. You want them to actually take you on a journey to explain why you want to actually donate to them. And a lot of times they do that through tear-jerking videos, sad pictures, and other ones do it where they're happy. But it's emotion one way or the other that invites the visitor into being a part of that nonprofit. And when you're telling that story, you gotta make sure that you are actually inviting them to participate in the story. Don't make it just where you're telling the story, but make it where they actually feel like they're involved, where they're compelled to actually be a part of your journey. The storytelling content is king or queen, depending on engagement matters more. You want to be able to actually find a way to engage your visitors. Make it where they actually want to spend time on your website. Make it where they actually want to actually check each page and see and delve more into the content that you're providing. Stories sell and donors give. When you actually build a relationship with your visitor, they will be more apt to actually want to donate and be a part of your donation base. And when they open up their wallet, they're donating on their superhero cape and actually telling a part of their own story, because they're being the champion for you, because they want to start promoting you, because they want to be involved in whatever your story is. And the more that you share, the more that you give. They want you to be transparent when you're actually telling that story. The more transparent you are, the more engaging you are, the more that they will actually want to actually donate to you. Now we'll get into the actual design part of it. Theme choices. There's a lot of them out there. Everybody knows that there's a lot of freebies, there's a lot of premiums, and there's a lot to choose from, but there's also ones that are actually built specifically for nonprofits, where they have the structure already built out for you, or obviously you can hire a developer to have one custom made. But they are the ones that have, call to actions, templates, and things of that nature to actually bring in people to want to actually donate to them, and they will have certain areas that have are more donor related, I guess you could say. With those themes, you want to make sure that you're using the proper colors. And according to color psychology, various shades and ranges and things of that nature will determine the mood of your visitor. Before they see anything else, they're going to see the color of your website. A lot of those colors will determine whether or not they ever want to be a part of your organization. Because a lot of those will derive emotions, good, bad, or indifferent, and you want to make sure that whatever that emotion is aligns with the nonprofit that you're working with. For example, domestic violence, most of the time you'll see purple for those. Animal rescues, a lot of times you'll see orange. And there's a reason for each of those. They're not just chosen by happenstance. If you look at the various logos, you'll see kind of an alignment of the different emotions that those colors generate. These colors are used to specifically align with the message of that brand. There are certain brands that try to encompass the entire rainbow of colors. For example, Microsoft, Google, things of that. They try to use all of them because they don't want to isolate anybody. But when it comes to nonprofits, generally they want to focus on certain missions, certain keywords that they're looking for, and a lot of times you can align the color scheme to actually generate those emotions. Another thing you have to contend with is gender appeal, because colors do actually make a difference where, depending on the gender, what color leans more to who your audience is. For example, men prefer bright colors, women generally prefer softer colors. Same thing goes with shades and tints. All of these things go into the psychology of picking out something as simple as your color, which most people, somebody that wants a website, they don't think too much of what color they want, except for, well, they want orange, but what shade of orange? What shade of, you have to drill it down to figure out what their message truly is that will most align with who their audience is. Not necessarily what they want, but who they want to attract. Font choice also matters. It has been proven that certain fonts actually can encourage things such as taste. For example, you go and look at a pickle jar. Most of the pickle jars that are out there have a jagged font because it actually will create a sour taste in your mouth, psychologically. And you want to be careful because you want to make sure that you're using the appropriate font when you're actually doing a visual thing such as a website. Same thing goes for whether you want to be more traditional or a strong or friendly font. There's different font bases, and those can also, again, determine the way that people actually perceive your brand. And when you're working with nonprofits, they're a brand just like a business. And you need to treat them as such, and you want to make sure that you are designing your website appropriately. Knowing your audience as you did the design, makes a difference. Many times, your client will not really know who their audience is. They will think they know who their audience is, but you will need to probably do a little bit of information gathering from them, as well as if they have a donor base already, figure out who their donors are, and figure out what the demographic is, and that will really help in your actual design process, because it'll figure out who your audience is and who you're trying to approach. Excuse me. Intuitive navigation. Whenever you are building a website, and this goes for many other websites as well, you want to make sure that the menu is easily accessible. Don't bury the menu. A lot of times they'll bury it and make it hidden and things of that nature. Make sure that it's top bar or left side. Make sure that it's easily accessible, easy to read. Make sure that the titles make sense, because if you name something just in a weird manner versus, say for example, if they have a blog, if you name it something different than blog, they're not going to know what that content is, and they're likely not going to click on it. You also want to make sure that when you do those titles, that you want to limit it to no more than 3 words. Generally speaking, you want to go 1 to 2 words. Anything more than that, you're going to lose people, because they're going to think it's too confusing for them. And same thing goes for your drop downs. You want to make sure that's as simple as possible, because they don't want to have to go and search for information. They want to make sure that it's easily accessible. When you're building a donation-based website, you want to make sure that you're also building one that gives the donor options. For example, ASPCA happens to be one of the most common ones in the United States as far as for pet rescues. They do quite well where they offer many different selections on different ways that they can give. Giving doesn't always necessarily mean dollars. You can do things such as matching gifts. You can offer fundraising opportunities. Major giving, say if somebody's wanting to donate a lot of money or happen to want to leave something in a will, things like that, you can do bigger gifts. Mail-in donations. Yes, people still write checks, believe it or not. And give them that option, give them an address. A lot of times people don't think to even put a mailing address on their website, and therefore people don't know where to send a check if they want to. Obviously, Amazon now has a Smile program where they can donate a portion of anything that they purchase to that nonprofit. Give them that option to actually sign up for that on your website. Workplace giving, a lot of businesses will actually match, they have company match programs and things of that nature, where if you donate to a certain nonprofit, your company will match that. Give them that option where they can sign up for it. And then you've got people that obviously want to spend a lot of money and are into stroking big checks in the community. Give them an opportunity to have access to philanthropy options. The ideas are really endless when it comes to actually giving the different options versus just a simple donate button, which a lot of nonprofits, that's what they base on. For best practices, keep your branding standard across the site, meaning make sure that whatever logo, color, scheme you're using on the front page, that you use that across every page. Don't make it confusing. Don't make it where it's disconnected. Make sure that you feature the donation button. And when I say feature it, that means that it needs to be at the top of the page, middle of the page, bottom of the page. Make sure that people can't miss it. And make sure it's on every page. Because a lot of times people will put one donate button on the website, and then once they've gone half a dozen pages in, they have to go back and find the donate button, and most people won't ever do that. So make sure that it's easily accessible for them. Make the process easy. This is critical. The same thing goes for like e-commerce. How many people, I'm sure you've probably gone and tried to buy something and the process is too difficult, they ask for too much information, there's too many steps, and you give up because it's not worth it. Same thing goes for donations. Make sure that you make the process, the checkout process, so to speak, easy. Obviously, there are plugins such as WooCommerce and whatnot that can simplify that process for you, but the more steps you add to it, the less donations you'll get. Also offer other ways for them to donate, so to speak. It's not always in money, sometimes it's in time. Sometimes people want to actually be able to volunteer. That means social engagement, actually community engagement, whether it's locally or say they even want to do emails for you, or they want to make phone calls for you. Give them an opportunity to actually volunteer, which is also in turn a donation of time versus dollars, because not everybody has the capability or capacity to open up their wallet, but they have a couple hours that they can spend a month and help you out. Because those are also ways that nonprofits are able to run, is through a volunteer basis. Why people don't donate. Solicitation is infrequent, meaning that if you solicit somebody once and then you never solicit them again, they're probably not going to donate to you because they're not going to remember you. You're not important. You're not on their radar anymore. We get bombarded so much between email and just regular mail, especially spam mail, that unless you're in their inbox pretty frequently, they're going to forget about you. They don't see how it's going to make a difference. This is where the storytelling comes into play. Also, statistics are important. Make sure that you're showing people on the website how their donation dollars matter. Because if they don't actually see a visual impact, they won't feel that their $10 or $20 donation is actually going to make a difference to them. They never feel wanted or needed. And this goes into the emotional aspect, as well as you drawing them in an engaging process in the way that you actually design the content, where they actually want to feel like they're part of your organization. And if you don't send them a thank you, or you don't do a follow-up email when they donate, they're never going to donate again. There's no direct appeal. When you have somebody that signs up for an email on your website and you never send them a personalized email, you just send them to instead of to that person's name, they're not going to feel like there's a personal engagement to you. Also make sure whenever you're sending out emails that you actually put the name in there and you don't have just the field, because I can't tell you how many I get that are poorly orchestrated, where it just has the to and then it's the field name versus the person's name. Obviously they take a little bit of time. Make sure if you have a donation site that you actually offer where when they make a donation, they actually get acknowledged. If they made a donation in the past, you do an annual campaign or something like that, and you follow up with the people and thank them for their previous donations. Make them feel like they actually made a difference. You didn't ask them. And I can't tell you how many clients I've talked to for that, they feel uncomfortable asking for donations, which I think is weird because you're a nonprofit. You run on donations, but a lot of them are afraid to ask because they don't want to be offending anybody. Ask them. Because if you don't ask, they will never know that you want the donations to begin with. Timing wasn't right, just like any other purchase. Most of the time it's timing. And timing aspect means that you need to be in front of them on a regular basis, whether it's social, whether it's email, and things like that. Because the timing may not be right now, but it could be right 6 months from now. So make sure that you offer them the opportunity to be engaged again when that time may be right for them. The organization's mission wasn't compelling. If you're not sharing your mission, front page, top of the fold, then people are going to really not care about what you're doing, because they want to be engaged and they want to feel that you actually know what you're doing and why you're doing it, so that they can be involved in it. And so it needs to be above the fold where they can see it. Optimizing the design. Every nonprofit is different, and so are their donors. So you got to make sure that when you do that design, that you actually optimize it correctly for that particular donor base. Colors matter, like I said. The theme's going to matter. Search engine optimization is going to be key, because you want to make sure that whatever audience you're trying to attract is who you're using in your SEO, because you want to make sure that it actually shows up when they do searches. Make sure that it's mission ready, where they can be engaged in your mission. And make sure that it's social, because if you're not sharing your websites on different social media branches, that's the way people find you nowadays. They don't really go to Google so much. They go to, YouTube's the #1 search engine right now, not Google, which is owned by Google, but that's a whole other caveat. And then social media is where people find ads and things of that nature that get people to drawn in. So make sure that you're utilizing it. And make sure that you're actually using content, meaning that once you create a website, make sure that you're blogging, make sure that you're continually updating that content, because the more that you update, the more that you post, the more that it'll actually start to gain traction when it comes to Google searching and things of that nature. A/B testing. Make sure whenever you design that you do A/B testing and you do different ways of whether it's content, whether it's design, things like that, and change it up every once in a while. Here's some quick statistics. Long form versus short form. If you go long form on a post, you will increase your engagement generally by 155% versus a short one, which it used to be short. Now it's gotten a little bit longer where people actually want a little bit more a little more content. Making the fields in an opt-in optional increases by 275%. A lot of opt-ins require every field. Make sure that you're only requiring the information that you truly need. Don't require more than you have to. Because the more that they feel like they're being forced to give their information away, they're going to bounce. They're going to leave because they're going to feel that they're giving you too much. Naming an email address is probably sufficient. Anything beyond that, you can always gather later. Reduction of eye friction can increase your conversions of 135%. Make it easy when they read your website. Don't make them have to bounce around. Make it where it actually goes in a proper flow of normal web design. Because if you have it broken up where it's irritating to them, they're generally going to bounce off of it. Less steps through the process increases by 166%. Make it easy for them to donate and get out. Because a lot of times people are going to want to see what you're about. How do we donate? How do I do this? But how do I do it quickly? Because everybody's in a hurry nowadays, and you want to make sure that you make that process easy and it's not a tedious checkout for them. Adding a simple call to action up front can increase your conversion by 246%. Make sure you put that call to action where they see it, front page. And it can be a pop-up, it can be a slide, and it can be just right there on the page, but make sure that it's something that's visible for them, where they actually feel like they're supposed to do something immediately when they're in. Best practices, do's and don'ts. Some do's. Make sure that you make it easy to use navigation. Use pictures. Pictures tell stories just as much as content will. Speed obviously is going to matter because if the site's not fast, they're not going to want to stick around. They're actually going to bounce before your site even loads. Make sure that your call to action is clear. Keep it simple and make sure that it's secure. If you're not using an SSL, most people nowadays will not donate because they don't feel like their payment's going to be safe with you. Obviously, Google's going to start clamping down on those sites that are not offering an SSL, but just make sure it's a best practice that you have one. And make sure that your site is mobile friendly. Most people nowadays, they don't carry around a laptop anymore. Most people don't even use a desktop anymore. And make sure that it's something that they can access easily and donate easily off of a phone or a tablet. Some don'ts. Don't hide the donate button. Don't make it on the back page under the contact us page. Make it front and center and make sure it's visible everywhere on every page. Don't self-play audio and video. A lot of people are using their phone and whatnot, and they don't want to be blasted with an annoying song or an annoying video where they're watching it in their office. And they want it because more than likely they have their volume turned up because they're listening to music before they come to your website. So make sure that you make it where they have to actually press a play button versus autoplay. Don't bury the story. Make sure that story is easily accessible on the front page and continue the story on the about page or wherever you want to be. It can be a short version up front, but make sure that it's there where people can find it. Don't forget to ask. Again, meaning don't forget to ask for your donation and ask periodically on each page in different ways. You be creative about it. It doesn't have to be the same question over and over again, but make it interesting and engaging for them. Don't be scared to ask. Like I said, a lot of nonprofits, they don't feel like they should have to ask because people should know because I'm a nonprofit, so I shouldn't have to ask, but you did. Don't use big picture files. I actually had a client that uploaded pictures raw and he couldn't understand why his photos weren't, why his website wasn't loading correctly and why he wasn't getting donors. Well, he was loading them full scale and his page speed was about 12 seconds. Which 12 seconds, nobody's going to donate to you. It's just not going to happen. don't beg. There's a difference between asking and begging. And a lot of nonprofits that are out there that are asking for money, they get to the borderline of begging versus actually just asking politely. We have a local nonprofit that every Christmas they were going to be having to shut the doors and everything was terrible. It was doomsday every December because they hadn't made their donor base. Don't beg. It's not good for anybody. Analytics. Make sure that you're using Google Analytics so that you know who your audience is. Heat mapping. Figure out where people are going on your website. Crazy Egg is one that can actually, it's a tool where you can figure out exactly where people are going on your website and you can figure out what works and what's not working. Use email marketing, funnels, lead generation. I'm speeding up because I'm running out of time. One thing with nonprofits, your clients are the nonprofit, you are not. You don't, just because you're working with a nonprofit doesn't necessarily mean that it's free. A lot of times they expect it to be, but it's not. Make sure you have a plan, set your expectations, charge them, and charge them accordingly. Doesn't mean you have to charge an astronomical amount or a different amount just because they're going to get a grant or something like that. Charge them what your normal charges are, but make sure that you charge them because you're the designer, you're not the nonprofit. And most of all, have a heart when you're working with them. Make sure that, I've always, with the nonprofits I've worked with, I've always made sure that I'm engaged with whatever they're doing before I ever get involved in their design. Because if I don't believe in what they're doing, their design will reflect it. And some quick final thoughts. Make sure you use a simple website builder or theme for building a donation site. Have a strong visual identity, logos, pictures, fonts, things of that nature. Prioritize your donation forms. Build loyalty content that makes donors donate. Make user engagement a priority. Any questions? I will show slides. Absolutely.
There are two mics. First question is here. We also just want to say if anybody is not able to get to the mics for accessibility reasons, just hold up your hand and we'll get a microphone to you.
Hi, I would like to ask about your opinion on the new way how doing navigation when the menu is basically a site inside of a site. I don't know if you notice many websites now are doing that. Is that going to help or do you think it is more confusing?
Well, I think personally when it comes to donation sites, you want to make it as simple as possible. And when you bury it behind whether it's lead pages or a site within a site, it's going to make the donor less apt to actually want to be engaged. But that's my personal opinion. It may be proven differently. I have seen that process is starting to take place, and I don't know really what the mindset behind it is. But personally, I would stick with the normal way of doing it, at least for now, until they can prove otherwise.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
We have another question coming here.
If you are a non-profit for people who have neurobiological or psychic problems, it's very difficult to promote the story because you don't see anything, you only can feel it. Have you any tips for that?
That'd be a little different. And I guess if you can't really share it because it's a feeling, then maybe you would want to focus more on pictures, video engagement, things of that nature instead of actual content. I would be interested to hear more about what that nonprofit is trying to accomplish, and maybe I can provide better guidance. And I will be at the information table later for more conversation as well. And I'd be more than happy to talk to you.
Excellent, thank you. Do we have any other questions? One last question, go ahead. If you have I think we have 3 more minutes.
Hi. You talked about the importance of themes
Yes.
and the There are so many out there. Do you have any recommendations where to the good ones or?
Well, what you can do is you can look for, obviously, for ones that are charity based, because all themes have keywords that you can search for. I have a little preference where most of the ones I build, I use elegant themes, Divi. So it's not really necessarily custom for charities, but I'm used to utilizing it because it does have a lot of accessibility for call to actions and things of that nature. But I would go out into the repository and look for charity nonprofit, and you will get a lot of them that are either paid or unpaid. There's another one, but the name's escaping me at the moment as far as another one that I've utilized, and I apologize.
Any further questions? If not, I have a short one for you, Charles.
Yes.
So you said you got into this because of the nonprofits. Now, what is your favorite story about impacting a nonprofit and how your work has impacted them?
I would say it probably would be one of my first clients, which is a nonprofit that works in Thailand, where they actually import coffee from Thailand, from the farmers there, pay a fair wage. They bring the coffee into the United States, they roast it, and then they sell it. And then the money that they get from the coffee that they sell, they turn around and support three orphanages in Thailand. And in 2017, I was blessed to actually have the opportunity to go to Thailand and spend 3 weeks over there and see the work that they do. And it was a little different because I actually was able to see the impact over there of the work that I had built on the website, where it was an e-commerce site, but it was also a nonprofit where they were selling all of it, and it was really interesting to see the actual physical impact of that nonprofit.
Very cool. Thank you so much for sharing that. You have one more question?
Yeah. Do you have any tips for multi-languages website?
There are some pretty good plugins that are out there that actually can do it. Is there a specific language that you're looking for, or?
It's just like bilingual for like, for example, from Thailand, Thai, and then English.
There's 2 ways that you can do it. You can have somebody actually translate it and actually have 2 translations physically built on your site, or there are some pretty robust plugins that actually can do it for you, where it's just a click, you select the countries that you want to utilize, and it's a click of the button at the top of the page, and they can translate it to whatever language they want.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Charles. Now, before you go, we have a small gift as a token of appreciation for your talk here.
Thank you.
And I'd like everybody to say a big thank you to Charles Johnson. We'll have a little bit of time now before the next talk starts at 11. In here, we will have Omar Wright from Yoast talking about structured data and blocks. So this will be in track 2. See you at 11.